This is Villa Savoy, located about an hour west outside of Paris, France.
Love that Black architecture TikTok is now growing. But and I've got the right shirt on today for this also. Anyway, um, the Villa Savoy, Corbusier, and this whole international style modern architecture movement. Corbusier's 5 points on architecture. There's so much like there to start talk about. Like first of all, Corb made bold statements, and especially for the time. Like if you are essentially saying that if you're designing modern architecture, it has to meet these 5 points, or it's not modern architecture. Um, and those 5 points, the pilotis, the free floor walls, the open floor plan, the raising off the ground plane, they all kind of speak to how the world was changing, how what we were living in was changing. So, like, raising the ground plane was essentially creating this opportunity to pull the car, making the car part of the architecture. Um, and then putting the building on pilotis or columns, essentially post beam, using a post and beam construction type. That was one of the first times we really said that the wall is not the structure. Before this, the wall was what held the building up. And so when you look at some of like the Flatiron building, the exterior walls on those are extremely thick because that's the way you're able to handle going to the height. Like you have to make it thicker and thicker and thicker so that you can go higher and higher and higher. But then there's this other side of it, which is they kind of knew but didn't know what a lot of the new materials and how they were using them would work. So, like, we've talked about this before with Frank Lloyd Wright, where Wright didn't know how to design a flat roof. He kind of put something together, and they always leak, and they always have to be dealt with. But he's like, oh, that'll be a down the road problem that'll get dealt with by someone who will figure it out later, right? Like, my architecture is more important than if the technology is there. And so when you look at some of the details of the Barcelona pavilion, those beautiful columns, they're like 4L angles that are like bolted, put together, welded together, because they didn't have or know how to create the column that we would want to use typically now. And it's an elegant solution, if you ask me. And sort of Corbusier has some of these same problems where it's like, well, the flat roof, like I know what it should be, but like, how are we going to deal with it and get water off? And we'll figure that out. Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. And the conversation gets deeper because like there's so many things we talk about with these projects. Maybe I'll do more of that too.